Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Andrew DiCecco, InsideTheBirds.com. Don't forget to check out the Inside the Birds podcast, the pregame show Sunday morning at 10 o'clock to get you ready for the Eagles and Bucs. We'll do the same. Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 right now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. We're another edition of Football at 4 with Andrew DiCecco. What's up, man? How are you?
Hey, Mike, doing all right. Yourself?
All is well. Now, before we jump into some Eagles and NFL stuff, obviously last night, national championship game in the books. The college football season is over. Were you surprised at the outcome?
Yeah, a little bit. I didn't really watch the entire game. I had a lot of stuff to do and, different things going on. So, yeah, it was a little interesting to see the outcome.
Yeah, you got Georgia, obviously, wins the first national championship since 1980, knocking off Alabama last night. All right, so let's look at the big boys over in the NFL. We got all the matchups now. Let's start there. Philadelphia, Tampa Bay. Initial thoughts on that particular matchup. We do know they've met once before, but how much has changed since that first meeting?
A lot's changed. I mean, the Eagles are now a run-dominant team. They only ran the ball, 3 times or, at least single digits.
9.
The last meeting. Yeah, 9 times. There you go. 3 times against Dallas. And, now they've adopted a different identity, a more physical, resounding, smash-mouth mindset and philosophy that's really contingent on their offensive line playing at a dominant level and also their defensive line really getting after quarterbacks and rattling quarterbacks. Now, we haven't really seen that against any upper echelon quarterbacks, so we need to see that against, or I should say, better offensive line. So we need to see that against the Tampa Bay offensive line that's really stout if you want to get to Tom Brady and disrupt the rhythm there. But I thought, by and large, the Eagles are a vastly different team than they were back in Week 6. And Tampa Bay, it looks a lot different than they looked in Week 6 as well. Obviously, no Antonio Brown, and Mike Evans is a little banged up. No Chris Godwin. So there's going to be certain areas in which you can take advantage on both sides.
Yeah, I know that Brown had a big game against him. That's the game that he actually hurt his ankle, was that Eagle game. He had a big game the first time. I guess one of the key questions in this will be, as you kind of hinted at, the Eagles the first time did not do a very good job. Brady had his way. Without the weapons, will Brady have as much success? So if you were to kind of forecast that initially to say, take away Godwin, take away Brown, does that change the level of success that Brady could have against this Eagles defense?
You'd like to think so, but then again, you can look back at the Super Bowls that he's won with guys like David Gibbons and Deion Branch and Daniel Graham and Chris Fourier and all these different type of players that aren't exactly household names. And he did just fine. It's Tom Brady, so he's going to find a way to dissect the secondary, and he's seen everything, so there's not a blitzing throw at him that he hasn't seen yet. So you don't ever want to get too complacent and think they're missing this guy or they're missing that guy. We should be able to go into Tampa Bay and it's going to look vastly different than it did in Week 6. That may be the case, but it is Tom Brady at the end of the day, and he will find a way to implement Rob Gronkowski. He's going to factor prominently in the game plan, as you may expect, and Mike Evans as well. There's still game-changing type of players that can really affect the Eagles, and, they're going to have to be ready because it's not going to be easy.
We will dive into the matchups a little more when Andrew's back on Thursday, but taking a look at Gronkowski, at this point, who worries you more, Gronkowski or Evans, with what they have left? With no Brown and Godwin, I would imagine they're the two biggest concerns moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Eagles, I think you have to be most concerned and aware of Rob Gronkowski where he's at all times, given his rapport with Tom Brady, his ability to affect the short to intermediate areas of the field. I mean, the Eagles have struggled defending the tight end largely this season, and they haven't really. You saw O.J. Howard and different players have success even back in the early part of the season. They're going to have to be ready and defend that because they haven't. Rob Gronkowski is big, strong, and knows how to get open, can wall off guys with his frame, and he's going to be a red zone presence as well. So I think that the Eagles linebackers and safeties are really going to have to prepare for a long day, and he's going to get, I would imagine Gronkowski gets right around 8 targets this week, and they're going to look to exploit that area. And Mike Evans as well, but I think Gronkowski is the one that they're going to have to game plan for heavily.
Yeah, and obviously, the Buccaneers aren't thought to be a team that is a good running team, and Fournette has been banged up here. But obviously, if Fournette's healthy, that's another way that the Eagles will have to contend with. I mean, they did a great job running the ball the first time. Fournette had 22 carries for 81 yards, so it's just not a one-dimensional offense either.
No, I mean, Fournette is a tough physical inside runner. Can catch the ball a little bit better than some may think, but that's not exactly his strong suit. I don't know that Ronald Jones is much better in that area. Fournette's someone that he's going to, churn out 5-6 yards a carry. If you get him straight ahead, he's going to fall forward and establish that physical element to the offense. But I think the Eagles are going to have to rely on their interior tandem of Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave to really set the tone in the middle and wall off these offensive guards and start to make their presence felt against the run and make them one-dimensional, make Tampa Bay one-dimensional, and sort of tee off on Tom Brady because, at 44 years old, eventually these hits are going to start to take its toll. You have to wonder if this is going to be the week. I mean, I thought that the Eagles did a fantastic job in benching, deactivating Josh Sweat and Derek Barnett. And, those are guys that are going to play a key role this week if they want to have any chance in winning. So they're going to have to win off the edge and disrupt up the middle as well.
Hey, Andrew, report came out yesterday that Jonathan Gannon has been requested to interview for the Denver Broncos head coaching job. And I know a lot of Eagle fans are almost like, hey, take him. You can have him. He's not the most popular guy. But can you explain why teams have interest in Gannon? What is impressive about him?
I think it's his football mind. I think that he's considered to be one of the brighter defensive minds. He has experience in different schemes, and he's gotten. You saw with the Colts, he really elevated their secondary. Particularly, you saw different guys really ascend under his tutelage. So, I mean, like I said before 3 weeks ago, I mean, he doesn't lose his shine just based off of a one season sample size in Philadelphia. And another thing you have to look at is, does he exactly have the personnel that he needs to effectively run his scheme? And I think most will tell you that he doesn't. Now, he's been inconsistent, but he's also someone that's sort of finding his footing as a first-year coordinator. Saw some things that were a little bit promising and some that were a little bit troubling. But you want to, you can certainly see why the teams aren't completely off of him right now. I mean, I think he's going to at least have another offseason where they're going to at least kick the can down the road on him and at least see what he has to offer in the interview process.
Yeah, you think he would? I would imagine he gets an interview, goes through the process, but how likely of a candidate do you think he is? Do you feel like someone's going to hire John Gannon, similar to what the Eagles did with Sirianni? Hey, let's just go with an unknown guy who we really trust or like his ideas in mind, more so than what he did in terms of his resume. And like Sirianni was just a guy who had really no experience doing anything, didn't even call plays. The Eagles just saw something in him. That seems to be the road that a lot of these NFL teams are starting to go down. So do you think it is a high probability that somebody thinks that way about John Gannon?
No, only because there's so many different vacancies here, but there's also a lot of viable candidates out there that are, in my mind, and I think the minds of many, are going to be in front of Jonathan Gannon. Now, most teams, they interview multiple guys just to sort of gauge their options and see where they're at and see what they like. So He's going to certainly, I would assume he would get at least an interview, but I think as far as consideration, I think he's probably still a year away. He really needs to really put his stamp on the defense here, develop maybe a position group, have them take the next step. There has to be something that he can put on his resume when he's had this opportunity here in Philadelphia as a defensive coordinator for teams, I think, to really seriously consider him as a candidate.
I know that Saturday night, not a lot of guys, starters, played in the game. But I'm interested to pick your brain on some of the guys that really did impress. I had a list of 5 guys that I really wanted to keep my eye on in that game to try to get something from. I get it. They're playing backups. I didn't have a problem with that. But were there a couple of guys that you were impressed by on Saturday night?
Yeah, I thought Kayvon Wallace flashed a little bit against the run. I thought Andre Sacheret was flying around active, got exploited a little bit on the back end, but that's going to happen when you don't play a lot of snaps. I thought that he gets after it a little bit. He's in the time that he played, I think he played a little bit against the Chargers as well. He flows to the football. He's pretty active. Christian Ellis, the linebacker, he made a couple nice tackles. I thought Marlon Tuipulotu did some nice things after being deactivated for most of the season. I would have liked to see a little bit more Teron Jackson. Ryan Kerrigan got a lot of snaps. It didn't do a whole lot with them. Offensively, obviously, Quez Watkins did some good things there. 84 yards on, I think, 5 catches, his first touchdown of the season. Tyree Jackson was made a few nice catches before, unfortunately, suffering that ACL injury. So, Jason Huntley's a player that I mentioned in training camp as someone who I really like, and I think he breathed some life into the return game. So, I thought there were some guys that made the most of their opportunity.
Hey, would you feel comfortable using Huntley in the return game in the playoffs, or are you not throwing him into that type of situation?
If I'm the Eagles, I would. However, every spot, every active roster spot is so valuable in the playoffs that, they already have so many running. You don't want to dress 5 running backs and have one strictly back there to return kicks, which many of them may be touchbacks anyway. And I don't know how much experience he has returning punts. I know he was very prolific at returning kicks at New Mexico State, but I don't know that you really want to have a guy back there who may only return 1 kick in the game when you have 4 of the running backs that are in front of him and are going to get those opportunities to carry the football. And like I said, you need to allocate. Maybe you want to go heavier on the D-line. Maybe you want to go heavier in the secondary. It depends on the matchups. But to dress 5 running backs, I think, would be a little malpractice.
That's a good point. And we're assuming, I guess, then, that all the running backs are going to be back and ready to go, Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard included?
Well, Jordan Howard, I'm pretty certain that he will. What capacity, that remains to be seen. He didn't look like the normal straight-ahead, fearless Jordan Howard against Washington. And obviously, that stinger played a factor in the shoulder injury. So maybe having this week off, they'll be able to get him going. And you also have Boston Scott, who's done some nice things, and Kenny Gainwell.
Yeah.
And as far as Miles Sanders goes, he did suffer that hand injury just 3 weeks ago. It wasn't like it was 6 weeks ago. So one thing to keep an eye on is if he is active, you're going to see Tampa Bay go for that hand a little bit. Maybe you wonder about ball security and things like that. So even if he is active, I don't know how big of a role he can feasibly have being just 3 weeks off of that hand injury.
Andrew DiCecco, football at 4. Look at the Eagles and Bucs. The first time they played, they only ran the ball, as you mentioned, 9 times in the game, but a lot of those came in the second half of that game when the Eagles start to kind of show some life offensively. And in that game, Miles Sanders ran 9 times for 56 yards, Andrew. I think they all came in the second half of that game. You wonder if the Eagles go back and look at the success they had on the ground and really try to exemplify that even further here in this game. I would imagine that's in most people's mind, their blueprint is, hey, you ran the ball. Because remember, the narrative in that first game is, you can't run on Tampa Bay. You just can't run on this team. And they didn't try to. And in the second half, it was, hey, if you try to run it against them, you might be able to do so. So I would imagine they take what they did in that second half in the game against Tampa the first time and really implement that in this maybe entire game on Sunday.
Well, I think a lot of that was some of that success. You have to wonder if it was because Tampa Bay was playing passive. They sort of took their foot off the gas in the second half. I think it could have been a lot more of a convincing score on their end. They seemed like they were almost disinterested, I guess I would say, in that game. But
True.
I think the Eagles have to go into this game with the mindset of running the football. The worst thing that they could do is trot Jalen Hurts out there, have him drop back, throw, and drive after, and have a couple drives stall and not lean on the running game, because you're asking your defense to stop Tom Brady a bunch of times, and you start to dig yourself into a little bit of a hole. And I think that in order for the Eagles to have success, they have to revert back to the blueprint that has been so successful and try and get that running game going. Yeah, you might get 2 yards, 3 yards the first couple times, but just keep going, because eventually it's going to pop. It wears on guys, and I think that mix in some throws in there, but you don't want to revert back to that pass-happy offense, because that's when the offense is really proven to stall, and that's when you dig yourself into a hole that you can't climb out of against some of the better teams you're going to face.
All right, of course, you can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN this Sunday, 1 o'clock. All the Super Wildcard weekend action is on 97.3. We got a doubleheader Saturday, a tripleheader Sunday, and a standalone game on Monday night. We'll talk more about those matchups with Andrew on Thursday, and all the matchups, the key ones to watch, the X factors, and more when he's back on Thursday for another edition of Football at 4 right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Follow him on Twitter at DiCecco NFL, and he'll be back on Thursday. All right, AD, we'll talk to you, man.
All right, Mike, talk to you.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.